Welcome to this explainer. We're going to dive straight into a massive illusion today, one that's actively tricking educators, employers, and professionals all over the world. See, we like to think we've got a pretty firm grasp on how to spot a machine pretending to be a human. But as we're about to uncover, the very tools we've built to protect ourselves, they are actually failing spectacularly.
Okay, let's start with a really striking number, 61.3%. Back in a 2023 Stanford study, researchers took a batch of 91 essays written by non-native English speakers, specifically Chinese students taking the TOEFL exam. They fed these essays into 7 of the most elite AI detection tools on the market, and the results? Honestly, they were damning. All 7 detectors unanimously failed, falsely classifying a staggering 61.3% of these entirely human-written essays as AI-generated. But here is the absolute wild part that the researchers uncovered next. They took those exact same human essays and asked ChatGPT to, quote-unquote, enhance the word choices to sound a bit more like a native speaker. When they ran these AI-edited versions back through those same detectors, the false positive rate plummeted from over 60% all the way down to 11.6%. It's a brilliant illustration of a hard truth. These tools aren't actually detecting AI cheating. They're literally just penalizing linguistic simplicity.
Section 1. The AI detection illusion, catching the wrong culprit.
So we are out here desperately building tech to catch problems that kind of don't exist, while completely missing the systemic threats that actually do. We're treating AI-generated content as the ultimate bad guy, fighting a detection arms race we literally cannot win. And to understand why these detectors fail so badly, you just have to look at perplexity. This is the core metric the detectors rely on. Basically, it measures how surprised the language model is by the next word in a sentence. AI writes with low perplexity, meaning it's highly predictable. But you know who else writes with simpler vocabulary and more regular syntax? A non-native English speaker writing very carefully in a second language. The detectors fundamentally cannot tell the difference.
Right, so if just the mere act of generating text isn't the real threat, what is? Well, as a 2026 study on super persuasive AI points out, the real danger is truthiness. AI generates text that is just incredibly fluent, and our human brains, we've evolved to automatically equate fluency with credibility. So the actual threat here is that AI can generate highly fluent falsehoods, package them perfectly with fake citations, confident assertions, and sound logic. And as this quote perfectly sums up, persuasiveness without accuracy is simply the definition of propaganda.
Section 2. Bias at machine scale, inheriting human prejudice.
Listen, if the illusion of detection is a flawed technical glitch, bias is a massive structural earthquake. Because AI doesn't just wake up one day and decide to create prejudice. No, it inherits it from historical data, bakes it in, and then deploys it at a scale humanity has never seen. To put that scale into perspective, let's look at a Stanford HI study on AI hiring tools. They tracked millions of job applications and found that a single third-party vendor's AI tool was systematically discriminating against 26% of Black applicants and 15% of Asian applicants. And because 90% of U.S. employers use the exact same few vendors, it creates this terrifying algorithmic monoculture. A single flawed gatekeeper systematically shutting 40,000 minority applicants out of entire industries, all at the same time.
And how does the tech industry usually handle this kind of bias? Well, this comparison highlights the difference between fixing a root issue and settling for a pragmatic reality. Take the infamous 2015 Google Photos incident. The algorithm disastrously failed to distinguish Black faces from primates. But the fix? It wasn't to actually solve the algorithm's visual failure. Nope, the pragmatic fix was for Google to simply delete the words gorilla, chimpanzee, and monkey from the labeling system entirely. They didn't fix the underlying failure, they just narrowly patched over the PR disaster.
Section 3. The over-reliance trap, when humans stop thinking.
This brings us to the psychological turn of our explainer. The machine is deeply flawed, yes, but the truly terrifying part of this whole equation is how eager humans are to just stop thinking. The absolute second we introduce AI into a workflow, human judgment seems to completely evaporate. Research in the Journal of Service Management calls this exact concept AI complacency. It's driven by an old psychological phenomenon known as the Ringelmann effect, which is basically the massive diffusion of responsibility when you're in a group. When a machine generates the output and a human is just tasked with clicking approve, neither party feels fully accountable. So we just stop checking the work, even when glaring factual errors are staring us right in the face.
These automation bias findings from the Harvard Data Science Review are absolutely wild. Just look at that second point. If you make a human physically type out a correction when they catch an AI error, just adding a tiny bit of physical friction, they actually make fewer corrections overall. The systems that are designed to reduce our cognitive effort structurally disincentivize us from catching mistakes. They even found that paying people financial performance bonuses didn't improve their accuracy one bit. No way around it, we just tune out.
Section 4. The moral crumple zone. Authority without accountability.
Okay, so if we stop checking the AI's work because it's too much effort, who actually takes the blame when the system inevitably makes a catastrophic error? This is where the human-machine relationship gets incredibly messy. We enter what researcher Madeline Elish brilliantly calls the moral crumple zone. Think about a car for a second. The crumple zone absorbs the impact of a crash to protect the passengers inside. Well, in a human AI system, the algorithm acts as a shield for the organization, leaving the frontline human worker to absorb the full impact of the blame when the AI fails, even if that human had practically zero control over the system's behavior.
Let's look at a real-world example of this. This micro-narrative of a rental car dispute perfectly illustrates the AI said-so fallacy in action. In 2023, an AI system falsely flagged an old scratch on a returned rental car as brand new damage, slapping the customer with a $1,200 charge. The rental agent deferred to the AI policy. The manager deferred to the AI. And the exhausted customer eventually just paid it. Authority gets deferred at every single step along the way. It proves that the human cannot win, the system cannot lose, and absolutely no one is holding the bag.
Section 5. The new critical thinking, a daily discipline. All right, we've shattered the illusion of AI detection. We've seen the trap of human complacency and the dangers of the moral crumple zone. But how do we actually empower ourselves to fix this? The answer is a new kind of critical thinking, not just as a nice concept, but as a daily discipline. We need to build specific mental models, starting with Model 1, intentionally distrusting fluency. As we discussed earlier, our brains literally evolved to trust smooth, confident communication. AI has completely broken this evolutionary shortcut by making fluent falsehoods incredibly easy to generate. So the next time you read a polished AI report, ask yourself, if this was terribly written, would I still believe it? We have to consciously distrust style over substance.
Then there's Model 3, which is all about establishing responsibility. Before you accept any AI-assisted decision, you absolutely must run it through the accountability test. Ask yourself, who is accountable if this goes wrong? This actually aligns perfectly with the EU AI Act. If the answer to who is accountable is simply the AI, then the decision simply cannot stand. A real human being has to be on the hook.
Honestly, I highly recommend grabbing a screenshot of this one, because these 5 models synthesize exactly how you can preserve your independent judgment in an environment that is quite literally designed to outsource it. Distrust the fluency. Trace the source chain, because we all know AI loves to hallucinate a good citation. Demand human accountability. Always assume historical data bias exists. And lastly, apply the effort principle. Intentionally add friction. Don't just blindly accept the first output. Take a second, write your own thoughts down first, and verify.
I want to wrap up and leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. These models exist for one reason, to remind you that AI is a tool, not a substitute for your judgment. The real problem isn't the technology itself. The problem is what happens to us when that technology becomes a little too easy to trust. Because genuine judgment, it requires effort, it requires a healthy dose of skepticism, and above all, it requires accountability. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions out there, and I'll catch you next time.